The probe lasted 43 seconds before it died. Vel watched the data stream turn to noise on his display. His crystalline body flickered with dim blue light, a sign of deep exhaustion that his species could not hide. 800 years of study. 4,891 probes. And still, the void blight gave them nothing but silence and death. Recording complete, the station computer announced. Probe 774 has been lost. No recoverable data. Vel closed his ancient eyes. Around him, the observation deck of Eternity's Edge hummed with quiet activity. Dozens of scholars from 12 different species worked at their stations, running calculations that would lead nowhere, writing papers that would solve nothing. They had been doing this for centuries. They would continue doing it until the blight swallowed them all. Another failure, said a voice behind him. Vel turned to see Orin approaching. The young Kalani researcher moved on 4 legs, his amphibious skin glistening under the station lights. His upper arms held a data tablet. His large eyes showed the frustration that Vel remembered feeling 200 years ago. It's not a failure, Vel said slowly. Data is never failure. We learned that the quantum degradation field has increased by 0.3% since our last probe. It is getting faster, Orin said. And we are still just watching. Watching is how we learn. Watching is how we die slowly. Orin's voice was sharp. The blight has consumed 9,000 star systems. 9,000. And we respond with more probes and more papers. Vel did not argue. He could not. The young researcher was right, even if saying so would change nothing. The blight was not a problem that could be solved. It was a force of nature, like gravity or time. You did not solve gravity. You simply lived with it until it killed you. The doors to the observation deck opened, and Ambassador Rin entered. She was tall and thin, with gray skin and eyes that had seen too many committee meetings. She represented the Galactic Council on Eternity's Edge, and she always brought news that nobody wanted to hear. Scholars, she announced. We have received a request from the human delegation. Several researchers looked up with mild interest. Humanity was new to the galactic community. They had achieved faster-than-light travel only 60 years ago, and had been granted full citizenship 40 years after that. Most species considered them clever, but primitive. They built excellent machines, but showed little talent for theoretical science. What do they want? Vel asked. Access to all blight research data. Every study, every probe result, every calculation from the past 8 centuries. Silence fell over the deck. Then, slowly, someone laughed. It was a Morvani scholar near the back, his reptilian face twisted with amusement. The humans want to study the blight. The Morvani shook his head. What will they do? Build a bigger hammer and try to hit it. More laughter followed. Vel did not join in. He had met a few humans over the years. They were strange creatures. They smiled when they were angry. They made jokes about death. They ran toward danger instead of away from it. He did not understand them, but he had learned not to underestimate things he did not understand. They are citizens of the galaxy, Rin said. They have the right to request research data. Then give it to them, the Morvani said, still laughing. Let them waste their time like we have wasted ours. Rin nodded and made a note on her tablet. The transfer will be complete within 1 standard day. Orin moved closer to Vel. Do you think they will find anything? No, Vel admitted. But I have been wrong before. I was wrong 4,891 times. Perhaps I will be wrong again. 2 weeks passed. The station continued its slow work. More probes were built, launched, and destroyed. More papers were written that nobody would read. Vel spent his days reviewing old data, while searching for patterns that did not exist in chaos, that had no meaning. Then the ship arrived. Vel was in his quarters when the alert sounded. He moved to the nearest viewing port and saw it approaching through the darkness of space. It was a human vessel, angular and gray, covered in armor plating and weapon systems. The name painted on its hull read Indomitable. That is not a research ship, Orin said. He had appeared beside Vel, his eyes wide with confusion. That is a warship, yes, Vel agreed. It is the Indomitable, docked with Eternity's Edge 1 hour later. Vel joined the other senior scholars in the reception bay. Watching as the airlock opened and the humans stepped through, there were 4 of them. The one in front was a man with short gray hair and a face like carved stone. He wore a military uniform with the name Tesu on his chest. Behind him came a woman in a white coat, her dark hair pulled back, her eyes calm and measuring. The name on her identification badge read Dr. Yuna Park. The other 2 were younger. A man and a woman in military uniforms, both carrying equipment cases. Captain Tezu looked around the reception bay. His eyes moved over the alien scholars with no sign of surprise or wonder. He had clearly seen stranger things in his life. "Thank you for receiving us," he said. His voice was deep and flat. "We have reviewed your research data. All of it." Rin asked, surprised. "That would take months to properly analyze. We work fast." Captain Tesu turned to Dr. Yuna, who stepped forward with a tablet in her hands. "I have questions," she said. "First, has anyone tried direct offensive action against the Blight?" Vel blinked. "Offensive action?" "Weapons, explosions, targeted energy attacks." Dr. Yuna spoke as if she were asking about the weather. "Has anyone tried to hurt it?" The Morvani scholar laughed again. "You cannot hurt entropy. The Blight is not a creature. It is a quantum degradation field, a natural phenomenon." "Everything has a cause," Dr. Yuna said, "and everything with a cause can be affected." "The cause is a collapsed dimensional rift at the Blight Center," Vel explained slowly, as if speaking to a child. "We located it 3 centuries ago. But reaching it is impossible. Any matter that enters the field is destroyed." "How close have you gotten?" 0.3 light years. Then complete probe dissolution. Captain Tesu and Dr. Yuna exchanged a look. Something passed between them, something that Vel could not read. Then the captain nodded once. "We will return to our ship," he said. "We need to make some calculations." The humans left without another word. The scholars watched them go in confused silence. "What was that about?" Orin asked. Vel did not answer. He was still thinking about the look in Captain Tezu's eyes. It was not curiosity. It was not fear. It was something else entirely. Something that Vel had not seen in 800. Years of studying death, it was anger. The humans were angry at the Blight, and for the first time in centuries, Vel felt something stir in his ancient heart. He did not know if it was hope or terror. Perhaps he thought it was both. 3 days passed in silence. The Indomitable sat docked with Eternity's Edge, dark and quiet. No messages came from the human ship. No requests for meetings or additional data. The scholars assumed the humans had given up. Overwhelmed by 8 centuries of impossible research, Vel was not so sure. He had spent those 3 days watching the human vessel through the station's external cameras. Lights moved behind the windows at all hours. Power readings showed their reactors running at high capacity. Whatever the humans were doing, they were not resting on the 4th day. Captain Tesu requested a meeting with the full scholarly consortium. They gathered in the main conference chamber. 47 senior scholars from 15 species sat around a curved table with Ambassador Rin at the head. Vel took his usual seat near the front. Arn stood against the wall with the junior researchers. His forearms crossed with barely contained curiosity. The humans entered together. Captain Tesu led the way, followed by Dr. Yuna and the 2 younger officers. They carried no tablets or data devices. Their hands were empty, but their eyes were full of something that made Vel uneasy. "Thank you for meeting with us," Captain Tesu said. He did not sit down. "We have reviewed your research and reached a conclusion. Ready?" The Morvani scholar who had laughed before leaned forward. "Our best minds spent centuries analyzing this data. Our best minds were asking the wrong questions." The chamber went silent. Several scholars shifted in their seats. Ambassador Rin raised a hand for calm. "Please explain," she said carefully. Dr. Yuna stepped forward. "For 800 years, you have studied the Blight as a natural phenomenon. You have tried to understand it, predict it, and adapt to it. You have accepted that it cannot be stopped, because it cannot be stopped," Vel said. "The mathematics are clear. The blight is a dimensional collapse event. It is not something that can be fought. Everything can be fought, Captain Tezu said. His voice was flat and hard. You just need the right weapon. The Morvani laughed again, but the sound was weaker this time. You cannot build a weapon against physics. And we will. Dr. Yuna touched a control on her wrist, and a holographic display appeared above the conference table. It showed the void blight, a sphere of darkness eating through the stars. At its center, a tiny point of light mark. D, the dimensional rift that had started everything. Your probes fail because they are built to survive, Dr. Yuna said. They try to resist the quantum degradation field. This is impossible. The field breaks down all matter eventually. Yes, Vel said. This is well established, so we will not try to resist it. We will move through it so fast that the field cannot affect us. And when we reach the center, we will fire a weapon directly into the dimensional rift. Silence. Complete and total silence. Vel spoke first. What kind of weapon could affect a collapsed dimension? We call it null light. Dr. Yuna changed the display. A new image appeared, showing something that looked like a small moon covered in energy collectors and focusing arrays. Inverted quantum energy. It does not exist in normal space. It exists in the spaces between dimensions. Fire it into the rift, and it will collapse the collapse. End the event at its source. This is theoretical, a Venari scholar said. Null light has never been successfully generated. It was theoretical, Captain Tesu corrected. 6 days ago, the chamber erupted in noise. Scholars shouted questions. Ambassador Rin called for order. The younger human officer, the one called Sunjo, took a step back like he was afraid the aliens might attack. Vel raised his hand and slowly the noise faded. His age commanded respect even now. You are saying, he said slowly, that you have already begun building this weapon. We started the day we received your data, Dr. Yuna confirmed. Initial tests were successful. The weapon, designated Ragnarok, is currently in early construction phase. You did not ask permission. Captain Tezu looked directly at Vel. His eyes were cold and calm. We do not need permission to defend ourselves. The blight will reach human space in 400 years. Our children's children will burn. We will not allow this. This is madness, the Morvani said. His voice was high with panic now. You cannot declare war on a cosmic event. You cannot fight the universe itself. Watch us. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Vel felt his crystalline body grow cold. He had lived for 600 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species evolve and die. But he had never met anyone who spoke about killing the impossible with such casual certainty. How long? Orin asked from the wall. His voice was quiet but steady. How long until this weapon is ready? Dr. Yuna turned to face him. Full construction will take approximately 2 years. We will need resources from multiple star systems. Materials that currently exist only in limited quantities. What do you need from us? Captain Tesu smiled for the first time. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a hunter who had finally found worthy prey. Everything, he said. We need shipyards from the Kalani, rare minerals from the Morvani, theoretical support from the Venari. We need the entire galaxy to stop studying death and start fighting it. The Council will never approve this, Ambassador Rin said. The resources you are describing would require cooperation on a scale never seen before. Then the Council needs to decide what matters more, their procedures or their survival. Vel stood up slowly. His old joints ached, but his mind was racing faster than it had in centuries. He thought about the probe that had died 4 days ago. He thought about the 9,000 star systems that the blight had already consumed. He thought about the 300 years they had left before the galactic core fell into darkness forever. I will support this, he said. The chamber went silent again. Vel was the oldest scholar in the consortium. His word carried weight that no other voice could match. Vel, the Morvani said, you cannot be serious. This is a fantasy. A child's dream of punching the darkness. Perhaps Vel agreed. But we have spent 800 years being serious. We have spent 800 years being careful and patient and wise. And in that time, The blight has consumed 9,000 stars and killed 10 trillion lives. He turned to face Captain Tezu. Maybe it is time to try something childish. Captain Tezu nodded once. There was respect in his eyes now, and something that might have been gratitude. Operation Stillborn Star begins immediately, he said. The galaxy has studied death long enough. Now we kill it. Vel looked at the holographic display at the tiny point of light at the center of all that darkness. For 800 years, it had seemed like the end of everything. Now, for the first time, it looked like a target, and Vel discovered that he was angry too. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. In shipyards above, 17 different worlds. Construction crews worked in shifts that never ended. Kalani engineers designed new hull plating that could resist quantum degradation for precious extra seconds. Then Ari scientists ran calculations that would have taken decades and finished them in weeks. And at the center of it all, in orbit around a dead star called Ember's Rest, the weapon called Ragnarok slowly took shape. It was the size of a small moon. Vel stood on the observation deck of the construction station, watching robotic arms weld massive plates of armor into place. Beside him, Dr. Janae stared at equations floating in the air, muttering numbers under her breath. She had not slept in 3 days. But her eyes were bright with a fire that Vel had come to recognize in all humans. The focusing array is still 0.7% out of alignment, she said to nobody in particular. If we fire with that margin of error, the no-light beam will scatter before it reaches the rift. Can you fix it? Vel asked. I can fix anything. She finally looked up at him. That is what we do. We fix things, or we break them until they work right. This was the human way. Vel had spent 6 months learning it, and it still surprised him every day. When a Venari encountered a problem, they studied it. When a Morvani encountered a problem, they calculated around it. When a human encountered a problem, they grabbed it by the throat and refused to let go until one of them was dead. A message arrived on Janae's display. She read it and frowned. Keth is refusing again. Spell sighed. Keth was a Morvani industrial magnate, one of the wealthiest beings in the galaxy. His mining operations controlled 60% of the rare materials needed for Ragnarok's core. Without him, the weapon could not be completed. What does he want now? Same as before? Guarantees? Contracts? Promises that he will be compensated if the project fails. And if the project fails, there will be no one left to compensate him. Morvani do not think that way. They see only the next quarter's profits. The door to the observation deck opened, and Commander Daewon entered. He was a tall man with tired eyes, responsible for coordinating the largest multi-species military operation in galactic history. The weight of that responsibility showed in every line of his face. We have a problem, he said. Another one, Gine muttered. Add it to the list. This one is political. The Galactic Council is holding an emergency session. Several species are demanding that we stop construction. Vel felt his crystalline body flicker with cold light. Stop now. They say, we are wasting resources. They say the project is impossible. They say humanity is dragging the galaxy into a war it cannot win. The war is already happening, Janae snapped. The blight kills billions every year. We are just the first ones willing to fight back. Daewon nodded wearily. Captain Tesu is addressing the council now. We should watch. They gathered around a display screen. The image showed the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, a massive room filled with representatives from every known species. Captain Tesu stood alone in the center, small against the towering seats of the alien delegates. A Morvani representative was speaking. This project has already consumed 17% of the galactic industrial capacity. You are building a weapon based on theoretical science to fight an enemy that is not an enemy at all. The blight is a natural phenomenon. You cannot defeat nature. Captain Tesu waited until the Morvani finished. Then he spoke. My grandmother died when a hurricane destroyed her village. She was 64 years old. She had survived 2 wars and raised 5 children, and nature killed her in a single night. The chamber was silent. The next year, my father helped build a seawall. It was concrete and steel, ugly and expensive. And when the next hurricane came, the village survived. Every single person lived. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every representative. You call the blight natural? You call it inevitable. You say, we cannot fight it. But nature has been trying to kill humanity since we first crawled out of the mud. Floods, fires, disease, predators, ice ages, asteroids, and every single time, we refused to die. He took a step forward. We did not survive because we were patient. We did not survive because we were wise. We survived because we were too stubborn to give up, too angry to accept death, too stupid to know when we were beaten. His voice rose, filling the chamber. You have studied the blight for 800 years. In that time, you have learned everything about it except how to stop it. Humanity has spent 200,000 years fighting extinction. This is what we do. This is what we are. And we will not stop now, just because you are afraid. He paused, letting the silence stretch. Step aside. Or help. There is no third option. The vote took 3 hours. It was close, closer than anyone expected. But in the end, the council approved continued support for Operation Stillborn Star. The resources would flow. The construction would continue. Vel watched the celebration on the station. The humans and aliens working together in ways that would have seemed impossible a year ago. Oren found him standing apart from the crowd. You seem troubled, the young Kalani said. Captain Tesu spoke of stubbornness and anger. Vel said slowly, but I saw something else in his eyes. Something that frightens me. What? Certainty. He truly believes we can win. Not hopes. Not thinks, believes. Is that not a good thing? Vel turned to face his young colleague. I have lived 600 years. I have seen many beings with certainty. Some of them saved worlds. Others destroyed them. The problem is that certainty looks the same from the outside, whether it leads to victory or catastrophe. Before Oren could respond, alarms began to sound throughout the station. Red lights flashed. Engineers ran to their stations. Commander Daewon's voice came through the speakers. All senior staff to the command center, immediately. They ran. In the command center, screens showed data that made no sense. The Blight's expansion rate, which had been steady for centuries, had suddenly increased by 300%. It knows, Dr. Janae whispered. Her face was pale. The Blight knows what we are building. That is impossible, a Thenari scientist said. The Blight is not conscious. It cannot know anything. Then explain this. And it pointed at the data. For 800 years, the expansion rate never changed. We start building a weapon, and suddenly it accelerates. It is coming for us. Captain Taisu pushed through the crowd. He studied the data for a long moment. When he turned around, his face was calm. How long until it reaches Ragnarok? At this rate, Daewon checked his calculations twice. 3 months. We planned for 3 years. Then we have 3 months. Taisu looked at the assembled engineers and scientists. I suggest everyone stop celebrating and get back to work. We have a deadline now. He walked out of the command center. No panic. No fear. Just cold, hard purpose. Vel watched him go and felt that strange mix of hope and terror again. The Blight was coming for them. The impossible was fighting back, and humanity was smiling. 412 ships entered, the Void Blight on the morning of what humans called Christmas Day. It was a holiday celebrating hope. Captain Tezu had explained. A day when humanity remembered that light could exist in darkness. Vel watched the fleet depart from the observation vessel Witness. Positioned at a safe distance from the Blight's edge. He was too old to join the assault, but he refused to be anywhere else. Beside him, recording devices captured every moment for history. The fleet was the largest ever assembled. 380 human warships formed the core, their gray hulls bristling with weapons and armor. 32 allied vessels from 12 species flew alongside them, including a Kalani cruiser carrying Oren, who had volunteered against everyone's advice. And at the center of the formation, surrounded by protective ships on all sides, Ragnarok drifted like a metal moon waiting to be born. Dr. Yuna was aboard Ragnarok, preparing the weapon for firing. Captain Tesu commanded the assault from the bridge of Indomitable. Bara, the finest pilot in the human fleet, flew the insertion craft that would guide Ragnarok through the chaos ahead. "All ships report ready," Commander Daewon announced from his position on Witness. "Operation Stillborn Stars go." The fleet crossed the boundary into the Blight. For the first 30 minutes, nothing happened. The ships moved in tight formation, their shields holding, their crews focused on their tasks. Vel almost allowed himself to hope that the worst predictions had been wrong. Then the first ship died. It was a human destroyer on the outer edge of the formation. One moment it was flying steady. The next, its hull began to dissolve. Metal turned to dust. Lights flickered and went dark. 1,300 crew members died without even knowing what had killed them. Quantum degradation starting. A Venari scientist reported from beside Vel. "The field is attacking their molecular bonds. Can they adapt?" Vel asked. "No, they can only endure." The dying continued. Ships fell one by one, their hulls eaten away by forces that should not exist. The fleet pushed forward. They did not slow down. They did not retreat. Vel switched his display to the internal communications channel. He heard human voices, calm and steady, despite the chaos. "Hull breach on Deck 7. Sealing now. Engine 3 is gone. Compensating with auxiliary power, navigation is down. Flying visual, medical team to Bay 4. We have wounded. No panic. No despair. Just people doing their jobs, while death closed in from all sides." On the Kalani cruiser, Ren found himself standing beside a human soldier. She was young, maybe 25 by human standards, with short black hair and a burn scar running down her left arm. Her name tag read, "Private Sunmi." "How can you stand this?" Orin asked. His 4 hands were shaking. "Your people are dying all around you." Sunmi checked her weapon without looking up. "Everyone dies. The question is whether your death means something. This means something? Behind us is the rest of the galaxy. Families, children, species that have never hurt anyone." Her eyes were calm. "We are the ones who can fight. So we fight. That is enough." The fleet was halfway to the target now. 117 ships had been destroyed. 14,000 lives lost. And still they pushed forward. Captain Tezu's voice came through the fleet communications. "All ships. This is Indomitable. We are ahead of schedule. Ragnarok will reach firing position in 42 minutes. Hold the line." Vel watched the data with growing horror. The Blight seemed to sense how close they were getting. The quantum field intensified. Ships that had been holding steady began to buckle. The destruction accelerated. "We are losing too many," Daewon said quietly. "They will not have enough ships left to protect Ragnarok during the firing sequence." "They know that," Vel replied. "Then why do they not retreat?" Vel thought about Captain Tezu's speech to the council. He thought about Private Sunmi and her calm acceptance of death. He thought about 200,000 years of humanity refusing to surrender to the universe. Because retreating has never occurred to them. Reached the firing position at exactly the moment Dr. Yuna had calculated. 0.1 light-years from the dimensional rift. Closer than any vessel had ever survived. Around it, less than 100 ships remained from the original 412. "Weapon charging," Dr. Yuna reported. Her voice was steady, but Vel could hear the strain beneath the surface. 7 minutes to full power. "The field is intensifying," a technician called out. "Something is wrong. The Blight is concentrating on Ragnarok." Captain Tesu made his decision without hesitation. All ships form a defensive sphere around the weapon. Nothing gets through. Hold until the firing sequence is complete. The remaining ships moved into position. They placed themselves between Ragnarok and the incoming destruction. They became shields made of metal and flesh. "Captain," someone said, "if we hold position, we will be destroyed before the weapon fires." "I know. Hold anyway." Indomitable took the forward position. The flagship placed itself directly in the path of the worst quantum disruption. Its hull began to break apart almost immediately. Hull integrity at 40%, Sung Ho reported from the bridge. We cannot take much more. We do not need much more. For minutes, the ships around them were dying faster now. Explosions lit the darkness. Communications filled with the sounds of alarms and final messages. A Kalani captain sent prayers to gods that had not answered in centuries. A Morvani engineer screamed equations at the void, trying to calculate a way out of the impossible. Humans sang songs that Vel did not understand but somehow found. Beautiful. 3 minutes. Indomitable lost its forward section. The bridge remained intact, but navigation was gone. Weapons were gone. They were drifting, helpless, still blocking the path. Captain Bjor called from her insertion craft. I can see the problem. There is a concentrated disruption stream heading directly for Ragnarok's firing array. If it hits before we fire, the weapon will fail. Can you stop it? Maybe? She did not wait for orders. Her craft broke formation and flew directly into the disruption stream. For a moment, her ship blocked the deadly energy. For a moment, Ragnarok was protected. Then her craft began to dissolve. "Arrah!" Dr. Yuna shouted. "Get out of there!" No time. Fire the weapon. It is not ready. Then make it ready. I will hold as long as I can. 2 minutes. Biora's ship was being torn apart around her. She diverted all power to structural integrity, buying seconds at the cost of everything else. Her displays went dark. Her life support failed. She breathed the last clean air in her helmet and kept her position. 1 minute. Weapon at 93%, Dr. Yuna reported. It is not enough. Fire anyway, Captain Tesu ordered. It might not work. Fire. Dr. Yuna pressed the control. A beam of light that was not light erupted from Ragnarok. It was the color of nothing, the shape of absence, a tear in reality itself. It passed through the remains of Bjor's ship without touching her. It passed through the quantum field without slowing. It struck the dimensional rift at the heart of the Blight with the force of an idea that refused to die. For one terrible moment, nothing happened. Then the Blight screamed. It was not a sound. Sound could not exist in the void. It was a feeling, a sensation that passed through every mind in range. It was pain and confusion, and something that might have been fear. The quantum field convulsed. The darkness that had consumed 9,000 stars shuddered like a wounded animal. And at the center of everything, the dimensional rift began to collapse. Not outward, consuming more. Inward, destroying itself. It is working, Vel whispered from the observation vessel. Tears ran down his crystalline face. He did not know his species could cry. By all the old gods, it is working. The Blight began to die. 1 year later, Vel stood at the edge of the scar, the observation deck of the new station. Looked out over a region of space that should not exist, where the void Blight had once consumed everything. Strange matter now drifted in patterns that scientists were still trying to understand. Stars were visible again. The darkness was gone. In his hand, Vel held a data tablet containing the final chapter of his history. He had spent the last 12 months writing the story of the Blight War, documenting everything from the first failed probes to the final desperate assault. It was the most important work of his 600-year life. The galaxy spent 8 centuries asking what the Blight was. He dictated to the recording device. They analyzed its composition. They calculated its expansion. They predicted its effects. And in all that time, they learned everything about it except how to stop it. Then humanity arrived and asked a different question. They asked what the Blight could become when it was dead. He paused, looking out at the impossible view. The answer, it turned out, was something beautiful. Footsteps approached from behind. Vel turned to see Orin walking toward him. The young Kalani had changed in the past year. He moved differently now, with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced death and survived. A human military medal hung from his chest, the first ever awarded to a non-human. The ceremony is starting, Orin said. Vel nodded and followed, his colleague to the main chamber. The memorial service was held in the largest space the station could provide, and it was still not big enough. Representatives from every species in the galaxy had gathered to honor the 47,000 humans who had died in the assault. Their names were carved into a wall of black stone that stretched from floor to ceiling. Captain Tesu sat in the front row. He had survived the destruction of Indomitable, pulled from the wreckage by a rescue team that had refused to give up. His right leg was artificial now, and he walked with a cane. But his eyes were the same as always, cold, calm, certain. Beside him sat Dr. Yuna, who had received the Galactic Prize for Scientific Achievement 3 months ago. She had accepted the award with a simple speech about the importance of asking better questions, then immediately returned to work. There was always another problem to solve, she said. The universe would never stop trying to kill them. Hannah Kim stood near the back, uncomfortable with the attention. She had been promoted to lead the new Galactic Engineering Corps, a joint project that combined the best builders from every species. She was finally getting to create things full-time. She had never been happier. Sung-Ho stood at attention in his dress uniform, now a commander himself. He still looked slightly terrified of the alien dignitaries around him, but he hid it better now. And in the center of the front row, in a chair designed for someone who could not stand for long, sat Biara. She had lost her left arm in the final moments of the assault. The quantum field had taken it just before the rescue craft reached her, dissolving the limb centimeter by centimeter while she held her position. She had watched it happen without looking away. The doctors said she should have died from shock. She had told them she was too busy to die. The prosthetic arm she wore now was simple and functional. She had refused the more advanced options. "I don't need pretty," she had said. "I need working." Oren walked to the podium at the front of the chamber. He had been asked to give the keynote speech, the only non-human voice in a ceremony honoring human sacrifice. When the invitation came, he had tried to refuse. He did not feel worthy. But Captain Tesu had insisted. "You were there," the captain had said. "You saw what we did. You understood why we did it. That makes you the only one who can explain it to them." Now Oren stood before the galaxy and tried to find words big enough for what he had witnessed. 1 year ago, he began. "I asked a human soldier how she could face death so calmly. She told me that everyone dies. The only question is whether your death means something." He looked at the wall of names behind him. 47,000 humans gave their lives in the assault on the Blight. 47,000 people who knew they would probably not survive, who flew into the darkness anyway, who held the line while the weapon charged, who died so that others could live. His voice grew stronger. For 800 years, the scholarly consortium studied the Blight. We wrote papers. We held conferences. We watched it consume 9,000 stars and did nothing because we believed nothing could be done. We were the smartest beings in the galaxy, and we were wrong. He turned to face the human delegation. Humanity did not defeat the Blight because they were smarter than us. They defeated it because they were angrier. Because they refused to accept that some problems cannot be solved. Because when they saw death coming for their children, they did not ask how to adapt. They asked how to fight. His forearms spread wide. We studied the darkness. They walked into it with torches. And when the torches were not enough, they became fire. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, the applause began. After the ceremony, the Galactic Council held a private session. Vel attended as a witness. He watched as the representatives debated and voted and finally reached a decision that would change everything. "The doctrine of human resolve," Ambassador Rin announced. Reading from the official document, "In recognition of humanity's actions against the Void Blight, the Galactic Council hereby acknowledges that some problems require direct action rather than study. That patience without purpose is not wisdom, but surrender. That the galaxy must learn to fight as well as think." Us! She looked up at the assembled delegates. "Effective immediately. Humanity will lead a new galactic defense initiative. Their methods will be studied. Their approaches will be integrated into our own. And when the next threat comes, we will not wait 800 years to respond." The vote was unanimous. Vel found Dr. Yuna in her laboratory 3 days later. She was surrounded by data displays showing something at the edge of the galaxy, a region of space where sensors were picking up readings that made no sense. "What is it?" Vel asked, unknown. Yuna did not look up from her work. "The sensors are detecting matter that should not exist. Energy signatures that violate 3 laws of physics. Something is there. Something big. Another blight. No, different, new." Vel felt a chill run through his ancient body. "Should I be worried?" Yuna finally turned to face him. She was smiling. "No," she said. "You should be ready." She reached for her communication device and began composing a message to the fleet. "Tell them to start warming up the ships. We have work to do." Vel watched her work, this small human woman who had helped kill the impossible. He thought about the wall of names in the memorial chamber. He thought about Bora's missing arm and Captain Tezu's artificial leg. He thought about the price humanity had paid for a galaxy they had only just joined. They had given everything. And when asked if they would do it again, every single one of them had said yes. The galaxy had spent thousands of years learning to live with the things that could kill them, building shelters, writing predictions, accepting the inevitable with dignity and grace. Then humanity arrived and taught them something else entirely. Some things do not deserve to live at all, and somewhere out there, in the darkness between stars, something new was waiting. Something that did not know yet what was coming for it. Vel almost felt sorry for it. Almost.